Hello, my name is Stephen Murray, and this is the Knoll, an online gathering place for the people of Oak Knoll Lutheran Church and a place to share our community stories. Hi, Erika.
Hi, Stephen.
We're going to play a little game today. Can you name all 12 of our ministry partners? Since that's what we've been talking about.
Oh, gosh. I can name some of them for sure. All 12, that would be hard to do. Let's see. I always think of the preschool as one of our partners. I think of our Indian Students and Lutheran Partners in Global Ministry.
That's April.
I think of our Sandwich Ministry.
October.
I think of the Plymouth Christian Youth Center, PUIC,
November.
PCYC. And then I wonder if Lutheran Social Services one of them, or is that
December?
Okay.
Yep.
And then I know, because our focus of today is Beacon, is one of them too.
Okay, that's May. You're halfway there.
Okay.
You're doing great. Here's the fun. I bet you know of all of these. They're just, to sit down and list all 12, because that's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what, like the Quilters, is that one of the ministries, or is that not considered one of the 12 ministries?
Oh, this is where it gets tricky. The Quilters are not one specifically, but the quilting group donates to Lutheran World Relief.
Lutheran World Relief, which is the one this month.
This month,
February.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll give that to you. That's 7.
Okay. I'm trying to think. The Sharing Garden, that's not one of our ministries, is it? But the IOCP.
Well, what does the Sharing Garden donate to?
It goes to the ICA.
ICA. That's March.
That's March. Okay. Drawing a blank. I'll probably be mad at myself when I find out.
One's just down the hall. We have a whole room dedicated to it.
I said the preschool, so the music ministry or the...
No, we recorded it sometimes.
Oh, the Gathering. The Gathering,
yep.
Yes. Okay, good. That makes sense.
I'll give you the last 3.
Okay.
January was Amazing Grace Lutheran Church.
Oh, yes. The Hmong. Yes. Okay.
July is Our Savior's Housing, so another housing project. And August is Global Refuge.
Global Refuge.
Okay. So in a more organized fashion, January is Amazing Grace Lutheran Church. February is Lutheran World Relief, which is donated to by our quilting group. March is the ICA Food Shelf. April is Lutheran Partners in Global Ministry. May is Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative. June is The Gathering. July is Our Savior's Housing. August is Global Refuge. September is the Oak Knoll Christian Preschool and Childcare. October is the Sandwich Ministry. November, Plymouth Christian Youth Center. And December is LSS Lutheran Social Services. That's a lot. That's a lot of good work we do. I bring this up not just to highlight that, but to highlight that there are 4 of these projects that don't have somebody coordinating directly our relationship with them. Most of these have a point person who can help coordinate. For instance, Rick Johnson for Beacon Interfaith Housing, which is what we're going to talk about more today. But nobody's currently heading up Lutheran World Relief, Lutheran Partners in Global Ministry, Our Savior's Housing, and Global Refuge. And since our bent here in this side of the podcast is trying to get people aware of volunteer opportunities, that might be something you could help head up. Most of these aren't overly time burdensome, but just having somebody there to know what's going on and what needs to be done, like Rick Johnson.
Right. Well, and that is another good opportunity. 4 of them are missing leadership, because being part of leadership is helping other people to understand what it is that the ministry does and being an advocate for it, which is why we're doing these podcasts and why Rick is speaking to us. But it's the ones that maybe some of the ones I missed are maybe less understood or known. And it's a great opportunity for someone to take the reins and say, you know what, we're going to focus on this ministry and we're going to lift it up in our congregation and we're going to help people understand it and understand what we're doing.
And to that end, Rick has always done a great job of getting that information in front of the congregation, inviting in guest speakers, doing video presentations. But really, those presentations only scratch the surface of what this does. So we were able to sit down and talk with Rick and find out a whole lot more, including how things are changing right now.
Right. It was very informative, and Rick is a wealth of knowledge on Beacon and also other things, too, that he does in our church, like leading the Bible study that he does. But he is really taken upon himself to do a deep dive into not only what Beacon is, but who are the legislators that are working with affordable housing and getting to know them and getting to know their agendas and what their priorities are. So he has been a real advocate.
Should we dive in and listen to the conversation?
That sounds great. I am sitting here with Rick Johnson, and we are today talking about Beacon. We wanted to pull Rick in because he's been a member of the Beacon team for a while now. Rick, tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Beacon.
Well, it's an interesting story for us, and when I say us, I mean Deb and I, but I think I have to go backward before we were at Oak Knoll to give you some perspective. We were members of Zion Church in Buffalo for 38 years. And so during that time period, we had a lot of chance to be involved with a lot of different activities, whether they be building projects or Bible classes or council meetings or whatever. But there were a lot of social issues that we got involved with too. And I know one time that we did a Rick Warren group session on mission projects. And that really was an eye-opener for me about the need that people have in the world, a lot of times that we take for granted. We had already been involved with the Buffalo food shelf, so we knew of the need for people not knowing where their next meal was coming from. But as a result of this mission project class that we had, we began something at Zion called the Blessing Closet, where we decided, as well as people not having enough for their next meal, they may not have enough clothes also. So we began encouraging members of our congregation to bring in all sorts of clothing that they were not going to be using but had nothing that they could throw away. So we began storing those things, and then 4 times a year we would put into our fellowship hall all the clothes that we had, and then people from all over the community, not even just Buffalo but anywhere, could come to our Blessing Closet, take as much as you needed. And so through the food shelf and the Blessing Closet, I got a chance to know a lot of people that had needs that I had never really even thought about myself. It was sad to see that many things that I had just taken for granted, there are many people out there did not take for granted. We felt we had a pretty strong ministry there, and I was pleased that I was able to help. And what became interesting for me is then when we decided to move, is that where are we going to move? We were moving to Plymouth, but we had to find a church. And so we looked around, and Deb fell in love, first of all, with Oak Knoll. And I felt that's fine for me. We joined Oak Knoll, and we learned about the mission projects that Oak Knoll has. One of those happened to be Beacon, which, again, I knew nothing about. And she began to get involved with the postcards during a political process year at the state legislature. And that opened my eyes that I'd never thought about. And that was that people could get food at our church, they could get clothing at our church, but I'd never thought about where do they go? Where do they go when they leave? As I started to learn more about Beacon, I got the grasp of the idea that maybe the place they're going to is on somebody's couch. Maybe it's a place that they're going to lose their rent, and where are they going to go? Maybe they live in their car. And so that really opened my eyes to the idea that people just don't need food and clothing. They need a place to stay. And that really opened my eyes about the need for us as a congregation, me individually, to say, what can I do to help somebody else? And that's what really brought me getting involved with Beacon.
Thank you for sharing that story. And so that really answers my question about not just kind of how you got involved with Beacon, but also why you're passionate about affordable housing, and that stepping back and realizing, where do people go? And the food we can provide or the clothing we can provide, where do people go at night? Where do they sleep? Tell us about some of the events that have taken place that you've been a part of, things that have been meaningful to you with Beacon.
Well, we'll go for a while on that one, because there's been a lot of things that I've been blessed to be part of. One of the early things that I learned about was that Beacon helps build buildings for people who don't have a place to stay, to have a place to stay, to have a chance that they may not otherwise have. And that's when I was introduced to Cranberry Ridge, which is one of Beacon's housing in Plymouth. And so in the summertime of a couple years ago, we went to the picnic of when that building opened. I got a chance to sit with families, meet people who had lived in their car, had been in somebody else's couch that I did not know about. And I met Amanda and her 3 kids and what their story was. It was amazing to hear, 1, what their stories were, and 2, how happy they were that they now have a chance. They're not going to be on the street in Minneapolis. They're going to be in Plymouth with a chance. And so as time went on and I learned more about Beacon, I learned about the political process of Beacon working with state legislators, representatives and senators, to pass legislation to a program called Bring It Home Minnesota, to try to create more funds for more people to have a chance like the people at Cranberry Ridge. And so I started to learn more about that. And as I learned more, I became more intrigued, but how does that political process work? So when they started advertising for legislative sessions where there are meetings of representatives and senators to discuss bills about funding for Bring It Home Minnesota, I started going to those. So I would go to representative meetings or senator meetings. At one of those Senate meetings, they have testimony from many people. And lo and behold, at one of those sessions, I ran into Amanda, a woman who had no home, but 3 kids. And she spoke about the need for housing. And I talked to her afterward. I said, "Do you remember me?" And she said, "Yes." And so we got a chance to spend some time together. And one of the things that I had learned about them is that we just don't know what their situation is like. And so as time went on, I remembered back at our church in Buffalo that every year they do a bike drive, and people come into our church and are given free bikes. And so I went back to our church and said, "Have we got 3 bikes that we could give to this family?" They said yes. And so it was just amazing that Deb and I could take 3 bikes from Zion Church in Buffalo and bring them to Amanda and their family. They were so tickled. It was just amazing that, that we could do something to help somebody else. I was just so tickled to do that. And that was more of an incentive for me to meet with my representative and my senator to try to get them to vote for Bring It Home Minnesota. I sat down with my representative. Beacon had a big day when they wanted people to meet with the representatives, and I got a chance to meet with mine, a guy named Mike Freeberg in District 43B. And this is kind of a funny aside. We sat down there, and I saw that he had an organ over in the side of his room. And I said, as we were talking, I said, "Can you play Claire de Lune?" He said yes. And he went to this piano, this organ, and he played Claire de Lune. And he knew it. And so it was kind of a breaking point for us to get to know him a little bit and find out more of his desire to support Bring It Home Minnesota. So I've gotten to know him, and as well as the state representative in District 43A, Cedric Fraser. And I had a chance to meet with Senator Ann Rest, and all are supportive of Bring It Home Minnesota. And then as time is going on during the political process, Ann Rest has what are called town hall meetings where local citizens can come in and talk about their issues, and she just sits and listens. And I've been to 3 or 4 of them, and on every one of those, I took my turn to speak about Bring It Home Minnesota. Because I think we as citizens have to advocate for us, because if there's 25 people, there's 25 issues, and they're listening to 25. That was really insightful for me, that you have to advocate for your positions. And so it was just a tickle, one, to be part of that process, and two, to find out that Bring It Home Minnesota passed legislative session. And so a lot of money has been available for Bring It Home Minnesota to help people. And now we've been involved with Vista 44 in Hopkins, which is a new one that's been created. And another 40, 50 families have a chance. It's amazing to see, one, what has to be done, and two, what can be done. And we're tickled with that.
Those are some awesome examples of ways that you've been involved, and you've really taken it moved into the legislative stuff and gotten to know your representatives and have some relationships with them, which is awesome. Tell us how much time you would say you've spent being involved in Beacon. How much time does it take in a given week or a given month?
It's hard to say, because this isn't my job. This is a volunteer activity that's become a real passion for me. And so when the opportunities arrive, like going to a legislative session, or I could watch it on TV, I want to make that commitment. Not everybody was able to do that or wants to or whatever, but it's just been important for me to be part of that process. So I really can't put a specific time on it. But as I think anyone would say, if something is important to you, you're going to make the time. And so I have made it a point to make that time. And so it's been important that if those situations arise, I will make the time. And just to give an example, like there are 2 Beacon activities this week that I'll be involved with. There are options, opportunities, and you decide what works for you. So I do it when I'm able to, and I'm just pleased that I'm healthy enough that I can do all these things.
What do you see, as we move forward, what are some of the top issues that need attention when it comes to Beacon and affordable housing?
Well, this has been an exciting time for us when Bring It Home Minnesota got passed, and to see that some new buildings have been created and other buildings are on the horizon. But what's been frustrating now is the fact that Minnesota now is going to have a deficit in terms of funding for the next legislative session. Where is the money going to come for any issue, not just Beacon? And what's important is that in this process here of funding is not just the place to stay, but the supportive services that people have in these buildings. They may need help with, where's the nearest bus? How do I get to my doctor? How do I turn the lights on? Those kinds of questions that people need answers for. Supportive housing provides those answers. But if there's no funding for supportive services, it makes it very difficult. And what makes it even more difficult is when the federal government has made some choices to defund a lot of the housing projects. It makes it even more difficult because now the state doesn't have those additional funds. And so what will happen here is that people who already have places to stay may in fact be losing those places to stay and may be out on the street. And then we're back to the same problems that they face on the street every day. What made it even more serious to me was that a couple of weeks ago I was able to attend a town hall meeting of my representatives, and the issue was gun violence and the lack of policies to help people deal with gun violence. And so now you've got people who may be out on the street now having to deal with the fact that more people are going to be exposed to the potentials of gun violence. So the building of what these issues are gets bigger. It's a scary thing when I think of the new legislation sessions starting of what's going to happen. Where is the funding going to come for supportive housing? Where are things going to deal with in terms of gun violence and other issues? And so it makes for a difficult time, and that's why it's important that we, like our peoples at Knoll, support Beacon in the efforts to do whatever we can to provide affordable and supportive housing for as many people as we can.
Absolutely. And like you're saying, and you've got many examples, affordable housing is the root of so many other issues. If there isn't affordable housing, there's so many other things that can happen. And so that is why it extends into so many different areas in our society. How does Beacon invite people into being part of the legislative process and getting involved?
I was very surprised about how that process works, but it was fantastic for me to learn their process. The first thing that stood out to me was that once a month they have a half-hour update of what's going on with the state legislature. They call their program Rent. And so people log on, they listen for half an hour of what's going on with the legislature or even what's going on with the federal government. And at the end of each half hour, they have what's called an action. And what they have done is with each individual person who has signed up, they have the website of each representative and senator for that individual person to be able to be sent a letter. All you have to do is look at the letter they have set up. You edit it if you'd like. Your name is on there, and you send it to your representative and your senator. So once a month, they are getting something from Beacon, from us, about whatever the local issue happens to be. And that's what really opened the door for me of what you can do as far as getting involved in the legislative process. Beacon followed that up with rallies at the state capitol, and during that time period, we would hear representatives and senators speak about housing, but you also got a chance to see firsthand who your representative and who your senator was. That's the way that I was able to, one, know the name of my senator and representative, but also call and say, can I come and meet with you about Beacon and affordable housing? And so that's how it got started. And it may seem risky to do that, but you got to kind of step forward and get your feet wet. And so that's what I did, and that's where I was able to go and sit down. And Deb was with me, and then Jonathan was with me the first time we met with my representative. Not Jonathan's, but he came with me. So we got a chance. And so now when they hear my name, because this has happened a number of times, they know. If I go to one of their town hall meetings and I speak about affordable housing, they know. And so there are options for the average citizen who may think this is too far away from me to step up and say, no, this is important. I need to do this. I can do this, and I will do this.
Who else is involved at Oak Knoll in Beacon, and how can someone who's interested get involved?
Well, I think one of the reasons why I've been so involved is the fact that, first of all, my wife got us started in this, and having her support all through this has been fantastic. But I've got a chance to meet some great people within our congregation that also happen to be involved with Beacon. And so Jonathan Stranjort got us started, and they've been very active for as long as we have. And Erika Vickerman, that you're listening to, also is an advocate, as is Jessica Labs, and John Berman. Now John and Diane Sweeney have got involved too, and so more and more people are seeing this. And what's exciting to me is that whenever we have our month of Beacon within the church, and whether it's a speaker or a chance for a group discussion or products that people can bring to church, the congregation is very, very supportive of Beacon. And on top of that, what's been so important to me is the fact that our pastors both support the missions, and of which Beacon is a big one. And Pastor Jay and Michelle have been very, very supportive. So it's been great that we've had that support. And so it's always advertised that people can, in fact, learn more if they want to. To me, though, what's really important is that Oak Knoll has missions, not just Beacon, but many missions. And so if everybody picked one mission, how great that would be for all of us to, in whatever way we can, to make the world a better place.
The Knoll is a production of Oak Knoll Lutheran Church in Minnetonka, Minnesota. Music performed by Matt Serrar and produced by me, Stephen Murray. If you would like to learn more about Oak Knoll Lutheran Church, please visit us on the web at oklutheran.org or check out the live stream of our Sunday worship on YouTube every week at 9:30 Central. If you would like to share your story as part of the Knoll podcast, you can find information on how to get involved on our website. Thanks for listening, and God bless.